everyone. I'm Christine Gepp with the Dummerston Conservation Commission, and we're really excited to finally get back to having in-person events, and so happy to see you all. Tonight's presentation is going to be really special. This is Mike Clough from the Southern Vermont Natural History Museum, and he's going to be giving a talk on animals of Dummerston. That's where we all are, and where to find them. And he's got these wonderful specimens to share with us. So enjoy the talk. Turn it over to you, Mike.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Good? Good? That was like 2 people are doing good. How are the rest of you? Bad? Good? Okay, good, good. Yeah, so you just heard, my name is Mike Clough. Are any of you folks familiar with the Southern Vermont Natural History Museum? Got a few hands up here and there. Nice, nice. We are your local natural history museum. Yeah, you didn't know you had a local natural history museum. But on Hogback Mountain, about half a mile down the road on Route 9, is the largest collection, it's local-ish, is the largest collection of native birds and mammals in the state of Vermont. It's number 3 in New England. Yeah, Yale and Harvard have more native birds and mammals than we do. We know we have a bigger exhibit than Harvard does. We have not spied on Yale yet. That's not bad. We'll take number 3 to those guys, right? But it does mean you can come and see 250 species of native wildlife. Now, some of them aren't here anymore, right? Wildlife changes, and over the last couple hundred years, wildlife has been changing at a rate that we haven't seen for 65 million years. Yeah. And so the woodland caribou and the eastern elk that used to be our dominant deer here in Dummerston, see, we tied it to Dummerston, they're gone. They're not here anymore. The eastern elk's extinct. I mean, they're never coming back. We do have some other extinct animals. You have passenger pigeons, used to darken the skies here. And of course, not everybody gets all that excited about the Dead Animal Museum. We understand that. So we also have live animals. So when Christine said we had specimens, that included some live ones. So I had messed up the title of this program before, and it was Animals, Wildlife of Dummerston, Live and in Person, or something like that. I just fixed it, and I've already forgotten what I called it before. So we are going to meet some live animals. These are almost all animals you would expect to see here in your own backyards. And when the Conservation Commission called us and asked, if we had tonight free, part of the discussion included discussion. So we're going to make sure we have time tonight for you all to share your observations. Maybe you have some questions. Conservation commissions and your backyard wildlife, they go together pretty well. And that really is our focus at the museum also, is we don't have parrots or tigers at the museum. You all know them, right? Yeah. We have things that you're going to actually see here, and that also includes our live animals. Now, when we get thinking about wildlife, often we think about animals that fall into this category of charismatic megafauna. That's a cool word, right? The first animal you can name that comes from Africa is probably charismatic megafauna. Go. I heard lion, elephant, giraffe, charismatic megafauna, right? They're sexy, they're cool, right? We want it on a t-shirt or on a poster, and it's big. Charismatic megafauna. So here in Dummerston, you're going to see black bear, right? That's our charismatic megafauna. It's big, right? Somebody here probably has one on a t-shirt, right? We're going to see the big birds, bald eagles. How many of you guys have seen bald eagles along the river? Yeah, right? They're nesting on both sides of us. On all sides of us, actually, if you go over the hill to Townsend. Which is something pretty exciting. I know you kids, how many of you kids have seen a live bald eagle before? Right? Yeah, like all the kids. When I was a kid, way back then, I remember, actually I was in high school, and bald eagles showed up at the dam near my house. I grew up near White River Junction. And people came from everywhere. You couldn't drive down the road. It was blocked with people taking pictures of bald eagles. And now you're like, oh yeah, everybody's seen them. There's another one. Don't slow down, we got to get to the grocery store. It's that changing wildlife. we have some charismatic megafauna that's come back. At the same time, though, the moose that had just gotten back here, they're leaving again. You're not likely to see a moose here anymore. We might, but they're pulling north again. Anybody know why? Why are the moose backing off from the south, heading north again? You know? Okay, it's actually kind of weird. It's a weird thing, yeah. That's what's going on out west. Yeah, the western moose are declining because it's too hot in the winter. So they're heading north. Here it's something else. It's the ticks, yeah. Ticks are new here, and moose don't know how to do ticks. And moose are declining in New England because of ticks. There's actually ticks will overwinter on the moose. They did a study in New Hampshire. They found one moose had about 30,000 ticks on it. One moose carrying that many ticks. That's a problem. A deer can groom them off. Deer can handle ticks. The moose, when they try to do that, they end up scraping off all their guard hairs. And that's like taking off your raincoat, right? And just wearing that cotton t-shirt up to the top of the mountain. Hikers, you all know that's a bad idea, right? And if you don't, it's a bad idea. Don't do that. Cotton kills, right? So moose are dying of hypothermia, an ice age animal dying of hypothermia because they're scraping off those guard hairs. So charismatic megafauna is a tough one here. We don't see a lot of them, and they change based on our behaviors. And really, most of Vermont's wildlife is more mesofauna. We're doing all our Latin tonight. Are you learning your Latin? Mega, big, meso, middle, right? So it's the medium-sized animals. You think of the top predator in Vermont, it's probably that guy in the top right? You know him? Who is that?
Coyote fox.
Yeah, well, first half.
Coyote.
Yeah, coyote. Yeah, our eastern coyote. Probably our top predator in Vermont right now. In any place else where coyotes live, where there are wolves and there are mountain lions, he's a low guy. He's got to watch out. He's not a top predator. Coyote's a middle predator. It's a scavenger. But we get lots of cool animals in there, and some of our more familiar, eye-catching wildlife falls into this category. A heron, that's pretty cool, right? You could probably argue a heron's a top predator in its own right. Otters, porcupine, these kind of 15 to 50-pound animals. I threw the white-tailed deer in there just because we had the moose on the last slide. White-tailed deer hundreds of years ago were probably very rare in New England. When the settlers came in and cleared out all those trees, created a lot of edge habitat, that's when white-tailed deer came in. So you see those Thanksgiving pictures, right, of the white-tailed deer getting brought into camp? Those are probably elk or caribou. They weren't white-tailed deer. They just weren't here. So we think of that wildlife we see in Dummerston now, some of it's relatively new. And we're going to meet some that's really new. But most of our wildlife, we're going to get to a live animal now. Ready, guys? Most of our wildlife is not these big, flashy, howling in the middle of the night predators. It's not a huge lumbering moose or a soaring eagle. Most of our wildlife gets overlooked. And I think that's why when we bring a program to a school or library and we ask a bunch of kids, what's your favorite animal, kids? We hear a list of wonderful exotic wildlife. Rainforest animals, African animals, Arctic animals. We rarely hear Vermont animals because a lot of our wildlife is like this little guy, the gray tree frog. So we can get his close up on TV here. How's that? All right. The gray tree frog, you're all like, what? This is what you brought out? This is your Vermont wildlife? Some of you may actually hear, you guys might be starting to hear them. It's this little bleep, bleep, kind of in the trees. That's not very good imitation, but Google it. These little guys up in the trees, and they're calling up there now because this is breeding season for amphibians, right? Did any of you have wood frogs near you? Doing like whack, whack, whack. And the peepers now, right? That, the peepers, right? The shut up frog, that guy? Yeah. And the peepers and the wood frogs and this gray tree frog are actually incredible animals. If you want to talk about animals with superpowers, I'm talking like the next Marvel movie is Gray Tree Frog Girl.
Whoa, okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We've got our stuffed gray tree frog here. No, he is alive. And a few months ago, those gray tree frogs that are bleeping away in your backyard, they were down under the leaves, just under the surface. And frogs, amphibians, reptiles, these guys are cold-blooded. Does anyone know what that means? Oh, front row knows? What do you got? You nailed it. Exactly. A cold-blooded animal cannot control its own body temperature. So, like she said, their temperature is the same as the air around them. So let's roll back to December. I just told you this, gray tree frogs were a few inches under the leaves. What's the temperature there?
Well, right now, probably, like, same as right now.
Yeah, well, right now, but what about back in December? Was it colder or warmer? Colder, right? It was below freezing, right? And a cold-blooded animal, when its body temperature starts to drop and it gets down to freezing, it freezes. Freezing, by the way, is super bad for you. If you can avoid freezing solid, do it. Don't do that. Most animals, it's going to kill. All those charismatic megafauna, you freeze a lion solid, that lion is dead. That's done. You freeze this gray tree frog solid, his heart stops beating. His lungs stop working. You hook his head up to electrodes. His brain's not firing. And then you bring him inside, and you sit him on the kitchen table, because that's what we do with dead animals we find, right, guys? Yeah. So you bring him inside, and that frog's going to start to thaw out. And as it thaws out, its heart's going to start beating again. Its blood's going to start pumping, and it's going to start jumping around. There's not a rainforest frog in the world that can do that. Poison dart frogs can't do it. Right? We've all seen the special about them. This guy, you can throw him in the freezer today and he'd survive it. We won't because that seems mean, but we could. They're amazing little animals, and it's something that really every one of you has in your backyard. Maybe not if you live, downtown Putney, downtown Dummerston, where is that? Anyway, wherever that is, you have gray tree frogs in your backyard. Someone raise your hand, yes.
In the middle of summer, after it's woken up and it's...
Yeah.
What would happen if you threw it in the freezer in the middle of summer?
It would freeze up.
It would still
Yeah.
work.
Now, if you quick froze them, would they live? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me wants to be like, let's find out, but no.
It wouldn't necessarily matter.
No, it shouldn't. Now, if a slower cooling, like put them in the refrigerator for a while, I would totally expect them to survive that. Yeah. Now, the reason they can survive it is that they're not really freezing solid. It's not like that steak that was improperly wrapped in the freezer, right? Because, actually, that's a good analogy, because that freezer burned steak, the problem it had was the ice crystals. Think of that beautiful little snowflake, right? It's so beautiful and delicate. On the cellular level, it's a ninja star, right? Those little ice crystals are razor blades, and they just shred the cells. And that's why freezing solid is really bad for you. The frog and a lot of other animals, actually a lot of other Vermont animals, have sugars and proteins in their cells that make it so those little crystals don't form. Instead of pointy snowflakes, they're little soft blobby snowflakes. So it allows that animal to survive. And this is something, guys, I'm still not getting the incredible impressed reaction I was hoping for. But how about he can also climb glass. He's like Spider-Man, right? He can change color through all the shades of gray and a little bit of lichen green. You want an idea of how many colors that is? Look at the bark of trees. Those are the colors he can do. Those are the colors you want, right? If you're a tree frog, if you don't want that blue jay to eat you. He also has one other cool color trick. See if you guys can, you're not going to be able to see it. They'll see it at home. So, all right, guess we'll do this instead. On his back legs, under his legs, he's got some yellow. He's like, don't show them my butt. Okay. He's got some yellow under there. You guys see that? So that's a startle color. He's all camouflaged. He's hiding. Let's say a blue jay. We'll continue with the blue jay. Aha, a frog. I'm going to jump down there and eat that. The frog jumps. There's that flash of yellow. Imagine if you sat down at breakfast, you're like, pancakes, and all of a sudden they flashed yellow. You'd probably be like, whoa, what's going on? And then your pancakes could get away. Or, the frog, the idea is the predator pauses, hesitates when it sees that bright color, and that gives the little guy a chance to escape. Yeah?
How quickly do they, because I was going to ask you that before, whether they change color, because I've seen that it's really blending in well before, and almost, just swash them.
Right.
How fast does the color change?
It's not quick. Yeah, I'm trying to think how long I've watched. I've seen him change from that color to very dark gray in less than an hour, at least. Yeah. Anybody else want to, again, if you're all like, I watched that happen and it took 27 minutes, please chime in. Yeah.
I wonder, does he change color like along with his mood or something like that?
Oh, good. You mean like a chameleon, right? Will change color if it's stressed or if it's excited or whatever. They seem to be changing color for camouflage. So they change with temperature, they change with sunlight. If you get him wet, he gets darker. Think about that, right? Like if you splash water on the tree, it looks darker. Same thing works with him. The wetter he is, he's more likely to get dark. Yeah, good question. And there's lots of other neat little things. A lot of our birds hide in the bushes. All kinds of little amphibians down there. You guys see that salamander in the bottom right? Have any of you ever seen a salamander like that before? A few of us? Yeah. That's the most numerous salamander in New England. It's the redback salamander. And when you go out and roll over rotten logs, as we should do, right? Before you put them back, you'll probably see little redback salamanders. They're neat little guys. And they're also weird. Instead of having tadpoles, they have eggs with shells. And the tadpole swims around inside of it until it's ready to transform into a salamander. Is that weird? And that's another animal. We could go on the hill here behind the school and we'll find them. They're everywhere. All right. But some of our wildlife is visible, right? Some of our wildlife is in your face. And probably the best example are birds. Birds are the gateway drug to wildlife watching. Bird watching, right? Birding. You know what I'm talking about in the back there, right? Yeah. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Globally, they figure it's about $51 billion is spent on bird watching, birding gear, trips to chase stellar sea eagles up the Maine coast. I did that a little bit. And birds are everywhere, and they're exciting, and they fly, which is neat, right? Many of us like that idea of flying. And they really give us, really, no matter what your habitat is, you're going to find birds. I was thinking about, being here tonight at the school, and I figured we ought to have a bird that you could see on your way in today. We're talking about wildlife we're going to see. This is the most commonly seen hawk, probably in all of North America. This is the red-tailed hawk. He's not the most numerous. But this is the one we're going to see because the habitat of this bird is open spaces. Broad-winged hawks, which are kind of a mini version of this bird, we have many more of those in Vermont than we have red-tails, but they live in the woods. So most of them we don't see. We think about where we're going to find different animals. It all comes to habitat, right? Because most of us learned in early elementary school, a habitat is a home, right? Yeah. And different types of animals need different kinds of homes. Now, yes? Yeah. Yeah. In Putney, there is it's called a leucistic red-tailed hawk. Now, albino is something we're much more familiar with, right? So like an albino, let's say hawk, would not be able to make pigment. So would have no color. The bird would be white, it would have pink eyes because there's no color in the eyes, so you see the blood vessels instead of the color of the iris. This bird has dark eyes. She has a red tail.
Was that one up there?
Yeah.
True albino?
No, that bird is leucistic, so it's a different mutation. She can make pigments, but she can't apply them properly.
Or she likes him, or he likes her.
I would hope so. Actually, she's already got somebody she's been hanging out with. Yeah. No, but that's really neat too, because we're not in Putney, but just up the road. I mean, that's a unique animal. I mean, it's a white red-tailed hawk with a red tail and dark eyes.
Is she in downtown?
She's been seen from like Sand Hill Road to kind of the trailer park that's down in the valley, the kind of up around the edges above the trailer park. She's seen in there quite a bit too. Yeah. This bird's gonna poop on the floor. Yeah, but and the great thing about that hawk, it's an open country bird. So you're more likely to see it than, say, a white Cooper's hawk that's gonna be hiding back in the woods a lot more. I haven't. Well, the thought is that it's probably because of the other hawk it hangs around with. She's bigger, so the thought is it's mom. So she's probably been hanging out on the eggs this spring. There we go. We're waiting for that.
She was sitting on a bench.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. Red-tailed hawks, and this is true really of most birds really, they're very faithful to their breeding territory to the extent that, if there was a robin that built the nest, under your deck last summer, that same robin is going to probably be back in your backyard looking for a place to build a nest. Maybe we'll build a nest under your deck again. The same is true with those hawks. And with most hawks, they're gonna, we say mate for life. They do it like we do, it doesn't always take. But for the most part, in the spring, Mr. and Mrs. Redtail are gonna come back to the same territory. They're gonna go through courtship again, and those same two birds are gonna raise another batch of kids. How many of you have a hawk nesting near your house that you know of? Yeah. Been there more than 1 year? Same birds. So if you named them, 3 years ago, it's Ozzie and Harriet or whatever you wanted to name them, Bill and I don't know. They're probably the same birds. So it's okay to keep calling them the same names. To a point. And that actually does remind me that, as I'm asking you guys questions, please feel free to ask questions as we're going along. That's great. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the behaviors, the territorial disputes between them and their shoulders. Is that a pretty common thing? Or, we have both of them in our house, but they seem to sort of scoot around one another, but they don't seem to drive each other out. So you're probably, I'm just going to guess, you're probably on kind of an edge area. Yeah, because with most animals, really, but let's use raptors, birds of prey, they're going to divide up the territory so they don't have to fight. So the red tail wants to be out in the field, the red shoulder wants to be over in the swamp. The barred owl wants to be in the swamp too, but the barred owl comes out after dark. The great horned owl wants to be out in the field, it also comes out after dark. So they're not doing a lot of head-to-head. Sometimes they do, and red-tailed hawk's a lot bigger and stronger than a red shoulder. That would probably be a bad fight for the red-shouldered hawk. Well, I usually hear the red shoulders vocalize more when they're and not vice versa. I feel like I just didn't know if they actually drive each other or if they coexist.
Yeah, well, it's generally, and I'm speaking in big generalities here. They find an equilibrium. It's really not in anyone's best interest to fight. Because even though you'd expect the red tail to win, that red-shouldered hawk also has sharp talons. It's a predator. It's fast. It could also injure the hawk, even if it loses the fight. And nature plays really rough, guys. It really does. Anything that goes wrong, especially if you're a predator, right? A rabbit with one leg, or let's say missing one leg, it can still catch the clover. It's still going to eat. A hawk with one eye isn't going to catch its dinner. It's out of luck. And that's actually something I should tell you about. All the live animals we have at the museum and the animals you're going to meet tonight, they're all here for some kind of reason. This bird was hit by a car up in central Vermont. It broke his right wing, right at the wrist, and that wrist didn't heal correctly. So he flies straight really good. He flies down great. He doesn't do up. And if you can't fly up, that's like one of the most important directions to fly, right? Yeah. And that's why he's here at the museum. And all the animals we have at the museum are there for some kind of reason. So, open country, red-tailed hawks. You get back in the woods, you're going to see a variety of other animals, but they're going to be harder to see just because of those pesky trees. And some animals we don't want to see. Some animals we have bad feelings about. You all right? Want to hop back in there? There you go. Anybody here a little nervous about snakes? Nobody? A couple? Yeah, if a couple people admit it, I know there's 6 or 7 of you, okay? Snakes, of course, are an animal. They do get some bad press. We are going to meet a snake. The one up in the top right there, that's the reason most people kind of give for being afraid of snakes. I don't think it's the real reason, but it's the one they give. Venomous snakes. That's a timber rattlesnake. We don't really have timber rattlesnakes here anymore. We used to. We don't have them anymore. In Vermont, our timber rattlesnakes that we know about are like up near Middlebury in the Champlain Valley and out on some of the islands in Lake Champlain. Rattlesnakes are really restricted by winter. Every rattlesnake in town will go to the same place called a hibernaculum, where they can get down below the frost line because they won't survive freezing. Someplace where they can get a little bit of water, they can be protected from freezing, and all those rattlesnakes go down the same spot. In the 1800s, we figured that out, and somewhere around February, farmers would show up with a stick of dynamite and blow them up. And not only did it kill those snakes, it ruined the hibernaculum. So there was no safe place for those guys to go. That said, if you encounter a venomous snake, it's good to be able to recognize it, right? And in the United States, with one exception way down south, what you want to look at is the head. See this great big head on this guy? We can't really see it that well, but maybe you can. If the snake has a big diamond or triangle-shaped head, that's a venomous snake. It's a viper. And in New England, we have timber rattlesnakes. You go a little further south, we have copperheads. Both those snakes are vipers. So that big head, if you get a look at their eyes, and don't be like, oh, let me see your face, I'm not sure. But if there's a slit pupil like a cartoon snake, that's also going to tell you it's a venomous snake. In North America, and this doesn't work anywhere else in the world, okay? But in North America, you see a snake with a big head and slit pupils, it's a venomous snake. If you see a snake with a smallish head and round pupils, it's not a venomous snake. Unless you're in Florida or South Texas, something like that. We have the coral snake down there, and that's a cousin of the cobra. So small head, round pupils, don't let it bite you. This is an eastern rat snake, and I'm kind of cheating with the rat snake. These are another snake that you're going to find really only out in western Vermont. But we have a newcomer to the Connecticut River Valley called the black racer. And the black racer, to you and me, looks just like this snake. Apparently a great way to tell them apart, though, is if the snake bites you. Rat snake just bites and lets go like any other snake. They have weak jaws, little teeny tiny sharp teeth. You'd be like, it's a cat scratch. Apparently the racer bites and slashes. So that's a good way to tell them apart. Still, I mean, it's not going to be a serious, you're not going to have to go to the hospital or anything. As long as we're not talking about really, really big or venomous snakes, a snake really can't hurt you. If she were to bite me on the ear, she can't even pierce my ear. I just have a big, goofy-looking earring, really. But that's all tied into how they eat. How does a snake eat its food? Anybody know? Yeah?
Strangulates.
Well, that's how she catches it, right? She strangles it.
And then swallows it whole.
Then swallows it whole. Swallows it whole. This snake could swallow a gray squirrel. Right? You're like, wait a minute, that's bigger than her head. Most snakes can swallow something about 4 times the size of their head. I mean, so the littlest kid in the room could swallow a basketball without even trying, right? Yes?
So which way do they go after they're attacking the squirrel? Do they go from the head?
Well, if they're attacking it, whatever they can get a hold of. But then when they swallow it, yeah, they want to go head first. That's the way the fur goes, right? So it's going to go down a lot easier. The legs all lay back nice. This snake, we do see sometimes when she's eating a mouse or something, she'll swallow it backwards and it takes a long time. I saw our corn snake swallow a mouse sideways once. Not a huge mouse, but yes. Would you like to pet the snake? Here you go. Yeah. So the racers you might see around here, really, they're a big black snake like this one. You get over into western part of Vermont, you might find rat snakes like this guy. Yeah. You want to pet the snake? Yeah. Yeah. All right, questions, anybody? Yeah. Snakes are another animal that we can see quite a bit, actually, in that little kind of red and white guy that's underneath the rattlesnake. I just wanted to have a picture of that. That's a milk snake. And a milk snake is a snake that sometimes they're not quite that colorful. That was an extra pretty one. A lot of times around here, that red is replaced with more of a brown color. And those snakes like to pretend they're rattlesnakes. Yeah. They'll coil up, they'll flatten their head out, try to make it look like they have a big head, and they'll vibrate their tail really fast. If that tail's down in the leaves or it's drumming against something, it kind of sounds like a rattlesnake. It's a good defense, right? Against coyotes and bobcats and hawks. Terrible defense against us, right? If that milk snake convinces us it's a rattlesnake, we might run away, grab a shovel, and run back, right? Yeah, we're pretty dangerous in those situations. You want to pet her? We'll put her head way over here. It's the first step to recovery. It really is. There you go.
This is a big step for me.
Excellent. Good. It's a good first step. Yeah.
His head stays over there.
Yeah. And yeah, snakes are one of those animals. I mentioned that a lot of people will say they're nervous about snakes because they're venomous. Honestly, I think most of us are nervous about snakes because we don't meet enough real ones. The snakes we're meeting are make-believe snakes. They're snakes in movies and stories, right? And think about it. Think of a movie where snakes figured prominently in some way, whether it was a character or part of the story in some way. How many of those snakes are the bad guys or the scary thing? Got mostly adults here. Remember Indiana Jones? What was Indiana Jones afraid of? Snakes. Nothing but snakes, right?
I can understand it.
Yeah. But, it's too bad, really, because by casting the snake as the bad guy and us not meeting any real snakes, it gets into our heads that that's real. Would you like to pet the snake?
What's the pattern on the scale? Is it like diagonal? I was trying to
So, let's try to get her untangled here. So the pattern on the scales, and you guys can see there's a little bit of light markings on the scales. When she was younger, she was gray with black spots on her back. So we're seeing kind of the tracings of those spots.
Right.
And every time she sheds her skin, she gets a little bit darker. And you can really see it on her belly. Looks like she's got some food in there. Her belly used to be white with black flecks. And every time she sheds her skin, that black creeps up her belly.
Yeah, I see a pattern of like the little, not just the white. On the back. On the back, right?
It's outlining those circles.
Uh-huh.
It kind of looks like a chain almost. Yeah. Yeah, we're not sure how old she is. We've had her at the museum for about 9 years. In captivity, a snake like this could live about 20 years. She was someone's pet in New York, and they turned her into a woman who's doing some nature programs over there. Would you like to? Yeah. That lady decided she, and I quote, wanted to be the crazy crow lady of upstate New York. This is not a crow, so yeah. So the rat snake came to live with us. She's a great snake, though, and an animal that's a threatened species in Vermont. They actually not only imitate rattlesnakes like a milk snake, they like to hang out with rattlesnakes. So when those hibernacula got taken out, the rat snakes went with the rattlesnakes. And that spring, the mice and rats that lived on the farm had such a party. Really, because this animal doesn't eat corn, she doesn't eat beans. She eats mice and rats. And for a rat snake, sometimes she'll go up a tree and she'll eat eggs and little birds if she can catch them. Chicken farmers maybe don't love this snake. But I see every time I mention chickens, there's always people that give each other a look. But there's snakes aren't the only animal that we tend to feel bad about. You know, spiders, anything that does want to get into the garden, like the old woodchuck there. And some of these are great examples of backyard wildlife. You guys can see a woodchuck or a fox under your porch, right? Or under your deck. And it's a neat animal to be able to see up close. Snakes too, garter snakes. I actually, this was a snake slide. I changed it around a little bit. I have this neat picture of a fat garter snake, kind of with her side humped up on a rock in the sun. I see some nodding heads. Does anyone know what she was doing?
Sunbathing.
Sunbathing, yes, but for a very special purpose.
One to heat herself up and two to digest.
Ooh, you're on the right track. She was heating herself up, but she was pregnant. Garter snakes give birth to live young. Being cold-blooded, everything happens faster the warmer you are. She was accelerating her pregnancy. And you will see that. You'll see that this summer, especially if you've got like a stone walkway with some bushes around it. You'll see those garter snakes laying out on the rocks. And you might notice, boy, that's kind of a chubby-looking garter snake. Don't say it to her. They don't think that's funny. She's pregnant. Yeah. And she's speeding up that pregnancy. Yeah. Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, if you pick up a snake, a wild snake, it's probably going to bite you. I mean, you should expect that. Again, it can't really hurt you, but it doesn't know you just want to move it into the neighbor's yard or wherever it's going. Probably I mean, if you want to move it and not get bit by it, just, get a stick or hose and just kind of herd it out. Yeah, herd it out of the way. It's not to say it won't turn around and come right back as soon as you go back in the house, but it will move at that point. I have a friend of mine's from Florida. He's an alligator wrestler, actually. And he has a joke about copperheads, his neighbors with hose, knocking them back and forth like tennis. In the back.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
But you bring that one in. I being able to put my hand on it. I respect the thing. I hate it. But I don't like it. But if you leave them alone, then leave them alone.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, even, we look at these venomous snakes, they can only eat what they can swallow whole, right? So they're not able, they can't look at us as food. Unless you go to Florida, there's not a snake in North America that can look at us as food. So when we get bit by them, it's we're picking it up to get it out of the driveway, or you stepped on it. Most rattlesnake bites are on the feet and the hands. They're not sneaking up on you while you're asleep. You stepped on it, or you were like, hey, I saw them do this on TV, and you go to pick one up and you get bit. And even then, in the US, venomous snakes account for about a dozen deaths a year. Depending on where you look your statistics up, vending machines may kill over 200 people a year. Yeah. So what's really dangerous? Cheetos that won't come out of the machine or a rattlesnake. Yeah. Lynn.
So, when rattlesnake is now, rattlesnake now, why do they kill that? What was the reason?
So someone actually just earlier today, I just heard about this, or someone was talking to me about this. My understanding was that there used to be rattlesnakes there, and there are not any longer. But a expert told our office manager that they are still rattlesnakes there. I don't know.
But my question is, they were killed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just don't know the reasoning why.
Oh, fear. Yeah, we were afraid of them. Yeah, right. The question was, why were the rattlesnakes killed? We were afraid of them, right? And they were the bad guys. It didn't matter that those snakes, the farmer that blew those snakes up, didn't matter that those snakes were going to eat rats on his farm that year. I mean, especially rattlesnakes. They are rodent eaters, period. They don't eat bird eggs. They're not going after the chickens. but we were afraid of them. And I mean, you know, if you tangle with a rattlesnake, that's probably not going to go very well for you. And if there was a rattlesnake on the playground out here, yeah, they can't be there, right? I mean, it's not acceptable. But blowing up, you know, killing all the rattlesnakes on a mountain outside of town, you know, that's fear.
Sorry to backtrack.
Oh, that's okay.
With the rat snake, you said there's no difference between them and the black race?
Oh no, there are. Yeah, there are a bunch of differences, but I mean, they're subtle, I guess. And for me to try to describe it, and really for us to recognize it when we see them scooting down the road, it's going to be tough.
We lived in Northern Virginia for a few years, and there were so many digital black snakes down there.
Yeah.
I assume they're racers, but maybe not.
No, in Virginia, you probably had coach whips and racers and rat snakes,
well,
and
the major difference
all kinds of stuff.
Is I would see some up at 6 and 7 feet long.
Yeah.
But they were only like this. And
Sure.
so I didn't know if that was just because she's very well fed.
No, rat snakes are beefier. Yeah.
So
No,
that
definitely.
something else.
Another thing too, if you see a big black snake and you look at it and you scratch your head and go, how in the world did that thing get up there? It's probably a rat snake. They can go up the side of rough boards. You know, I saw a picture of one climbing the wall of a barn, just gripping the boards with its scales. Pictures of them like using the molding on the front of a garage door to climb the garage door. I mean, just really good climbers. All right. Now, we have actually most of the wildlife that we have around us, and it's the around us that makes this happen. Most of the wildlife around us becomes nocturnal. It becomes active after dark. Why? I mean, these guys are all nocturnal, but a deer, which is great in the middle of the day. It's crepuscular, morning, evening animal. Why would it shift to be inactive at night? You've answered a bunch. Let's see what this person has to say. Yeah, it's us, right? Yeah, absolutely. Human activity is not, most animals don't like that, and they avoid it. So they switch the time of day. Like we're talking about the owls and the hawks, right? Splitting up the habitat. So we often have a lot of different wildlife around us that we don't know is there. Winter is great for that because we can look in the snow, right? We can do some tracking. Trail cam. How many of you guys have a trail cam outside your house? Yeah. Have you been amazed at the things that are walking through your backyard at night? Yeah. Missed my shoe, but yeah. So this little guy is an eastern screech owl. Screech owls are not real common in Vermont. You find them in the Champlain Valley, and you find them here in the southern Connecticut River Valley. Now, they do turn up all over the state, but those are the places they're most likely to be. How do we know we have an owl around?
You might hear them screeching at night.
You might hear them at night, right? How many of you heard an owl that kind of sounds like, whoo, 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 whoo? Yeah, so that's I have no life, so that's what I learned. That's the barred owl, right? That's our most common owl in Vermont. And I can kind of do this one. How about, have any of you ever heard a sound that kind of sounds like, kind of like that? No? How about a sound like a horse whinnying up in a tree? No? If you ever hear that, check it out right away. Because no matter what, it's going to be cool, right? There's either a horse up in the tree or you've got a screech owl in the backyard. Screech owls do that kind of trill thing I just tried to do. And then the whinny are both two calls that you might hear screech owls making. And they're even harder to find than the barred owls. Because the barred owls are big enough, they'll come out during the day sometimes. You know, they're that big brown-eyed, right, kind of about that tall. Screech owls are little. If this guy is flying around in the daytime, the crows are going to kill him. The hawks are going to kill him. He has to stay out of sight during the day. And luckily, you look at his colors. He's bark colored, right? Hiding is what screech owls do best. Really, the barred owls, all the owls have great camouflage. Do you have a question? No? Okay, here comes the owl. Yes?
I went to the show on that. They had 8-year-old, there had to set up in the tree, and he was up there. I was alone around this boat.
Yeah?
And you could see that thing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It was really a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and someone just noticed his eyes look different. That's his handicap. That's why we have him. He was hit by a car and blew out that left eye. The iris is wrecked, obviously, the yellow part. And then he also has a detached retina, so he's completely blind in that eye.
I didn't realize they were so small.
Yeah. Now, we are pretty sure this is a boy screech owl, and in the owl world, that means he's little. For birds of prey, the females are larger than the males. A big female screech owl stand a head taller than this bird. Oh, we can't let you pet him, sir. I did not, no. It's more fun to say it when someone's trying to pet him. They have these great little feather tufts on their head that help with their camouflage. They can also tell you what kind of mood the owl's in. If the eyes are open and the feather tufts are up, he's fairly positive. You know, he's relaxed, he's comfortable. If the eyes are closed, he's hiding. It's not that whole thing, okay, you can't see me now. He knows his eyes are really easy to see. His eyelids are camouflaged just like the rest of him. So a screech owl will stand up really tall and squint those eyes down, and he's doing the I'm a broken off branch look. Yeah. If those feather tufts are down, he's upset, he's scared, he's freaking out. Here, if they kind of look like that. Oh, dude, come on. There you go. So he's upset, and there, we'll cheer him right up. Owls are one of the kind of the classic nocturnal animals, though. They're an animal also that we can bring in. A screech owl, you can build a big birdhouse for a screech owl. And they can come and they can hang out in your backyard. The great thing about those boxes is they also work for kestrels. They work for some ducks. They work for squirrels. Starlings, of course, will nest in anything. So you have a pretty good chance of getting some kind of wildlife when you put up that screech owl box. Yes? Do you have a question?
I do know, owls can owls on the, beak point straight?
Yeah, you're right. You notice that the owl's beak doesn't point straight. That's right. The owl has a hooked beak that points down, just like an eagle beak. Yeah, good eyes, good observation. Yeah, that's the beak and the feet are really the thing that the owl does have in common with hawks and eagles. Otherwise, they're completely different birds. They're descended from different birds. They do lots of things that are different. Being active after dark, of course, is probably the big one. Bats are another animal we can bring in. Yeah, and bats are in trouble right now. I don't know if you guys know this. Some of our most common bats have declined pretty seriously in recent years. You can put up a bat house, and some people don't like bats any more than they like snakes. But bats eat mosquitoes. Who likes mosquitoes? Yeah, like nobody likes mosquitoes. So we can build bat houses to draw those bats in. I don't know if you guys see on the left. Can you tell what that is? Can you tell? It is a flying squirrel. Our most numerous squirrel in the Northeast are the two species of flying squirrel. How many of you have ever seen one? A few of us, yeah. I used to live in New York, and they would come to our bird feeder at night. And there were some really ill-advised videos of out messing with the flying squirrels at night. Because they're actually really relaxed around people. They're not as afraid of us. They're active after dark. They don't interact with us, which is kind of a neat thing. If you do, I'm assuming now you've all brought the bird feeders in, right? Now that they've become bear feeders, right? Okay, good. Next winter, check your bird feeders out. Come out and go out at night and just check them out. You might have flying squirrels in your bird feeders. Another place you can find flying squirrels is in old birdhouses. Especially in the winter, they'll tuck into these birdhouses for shelter. and just go out and knock on it, you know. Anybody home? And you might have a flying squirrel pop out. And the picture doesn't do them justice. They're the most adorable little squirrel you've ever seen. Really neat. Any other questions? I'm just keep rolling along. Yeah?
We had, I think 3 owls in our driveway the other day, maybe about a week or 2 ago. And they were making all kinds of arrangements. I should play something really quick.
Please, yeah.
Audio. And you can see what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear it? It sounds like monkeys.
Yeah. So those are the barred owls. And we hear that at the museum when we have 2 barred owls. And when one of them goes off to a program like this, when I bring it back, they make that noise. And and I've heard barred owls before calling to each other and getting closer. And then when they get together, they make that noise. It seems like, and somebody Google this to make sure I'm not wrong. It seems like that's a greeting, like they're coming together with, hey, there you are, where you been? A lot of times when we do hear owls call, it's territorial. You hear an owl hoot over here and you hear another one hoot over there. They're yelling at each other. They're saying, hey, get off my lawn, don't come over here. But other times they are contact calls. So the mates will talk to each other. And yeah. Yes?
So they're pretty solitary?
Owls? Well, no, they'll pair up. Yeah, they live in a pair, most owls. And then during the beginning of the winter, they'll separate. But especially our bigger owls, they're doing courtship again in January. Like January, February, some of them are on eggs. Yeah?
Like one owl, 2 of them together, but would it be the same 2? I mean, if that's right there in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not 100%, but yes, that's what the book says. That's the normal. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of birds do. Yeah. Yeah, they stay together. That's kind of neat, isn't it? All right. Now, there's some animals that we see that aren't supposed to be here. And, to be honest, sometimes we're not seeing them, right? Sometimes we're seeing something else. I almost brought the stuffed mountain lion, but I was like, no, the slide will do it. So the state of Vermont gets 40 to 50 reports of mountain lion sightings that they think are good enough to follow up on. We have no hard evidence of a mountain lion in Vermont. And those who are like, oh, well, I saw one, you should have taken a picture. You got that phone, take a picture, right? Every state around us does have hard evidence of mountain lions. And when they've been able to get enough data to tell, they've been young males. And this makes sense. Because mountain lions, when the boys grow up, mom kicks them out. The adult males will kill them. So he can't stay in dad's territory either. So young male mountain lions have to disperse. They have to find some place where there's no adult males, where there's enough food to eat, and most importantly, where there are girls. So what they think happens is some of these western cats come east. Like, okay, this looks like a good habitat. Plenty to eat, no adult males, no girls. And they keep coming east. And eventually they hit Boston or the Atlantic Ocean or something. And they either swing up into Canada or they turn around and go back west. Several years ago, a cat was hit by a car in Connecticut that they tied to the Black Hills out in the Dakotas. DNA matched him to the Black Hills. They also had a DNA match from upstate New York. And they had him on a camera trap in the upper Midwest. Now, you draw a line from the upper Midwest to where he was in upstate New York to where he got hit by a car in Connecticut. It passes through southern Vermont. It's possible. You may have really seen a mountain lion. Maybe that beer was stronger than you thought. Maybe it was a bobcat. There's all kinds of options. Yes? Where'd the question go?
Well, as a statement, one of the things that Mark shared,
Yeah.
I thought was brilliant, is that we never find kill sites.
Mm-hmm.
So people think they see it, but then actually find someplace that you can see that it covered over its.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if you all could hear that. The other thing we're not finding is a kill site, someplace where the cat has killed a deer or something and then buried it, which is kind of big cat 101 there. Yeah. Yes?
Are the mountain lions the same as parrots?
Yes. Yep. Now, we probably had a different subspecies here in the east that's extinct. But mountain lions have, I mean, it's something like 200 different names for mountain lions between North and South America. So panther, mountain lion, cougar, catamount, puma, it's all the same animal. Yeah?
Do the girls get kicked out at the same time?
The moms will push the girls out, but the girls don't have to go as far. And the adult males won't kill the girls, so. Yeah, all right. So wolves are another one people think they see a lot, and we definitely have wolf-like coyotes here. Our eastern coyote has some wolf in it. The record coyote that was shot weighed over 70 pounds. That's as big as a wolf. I mean, not a big wolf, but it's as big as a wolf. And definitely with our eastern coyotes, we have coyotes that are black and blonde, silvery gray, the kind of German Shepherd standard that most of our coyotes look like. I found a dead coyote in the wood once that from a distance, I thought it was an Irish setter. It was red as an Irish setter. Someone had shot it and left it up in the woods. So could we be seeing wolves? There are wolves in Canada. There are wolves in the upper Midwest. It's possible. Maybe they're here. They haven't been documented here. The Adirondacks, a little more likely. Northern Maine, a little more likely. Golden eagles. Do we ever have those in Vermont? Yeah, they fly over, definitely. And the live animal that goes with this slide, it's kind of neat. Because in the official listing of Vermont reptiles and amphibians, he's listed as a hypothetical species. Not endangered, not threatened, hypothetical box turtle. Yeah, the eastern box turtle, they're found in coastal New Hampshire, they're found in Massachusetts. Right now, there's a lady who's training her dog to find box turtles. She's actually been by the museum, and the dog is finding our 3 box turtles in the museum very well. In a couple weeks, we're going to do an outdoor field test to see if the dog can find them outdoors. And then she's going to start searching southern Vermont and New Hampshire to try to find wild box turtles. And there's a couple different theories around that, because people have found box turtles actually here, the southern Connecticut River Valley. Box turtles have been found. And originally the thought was, well, they're released pets, or they're escaped pets. Because for a while you could buy them in the pet stores in New Hampshire. The new theory is that maybe we had box turtles. And when the settlers got here, we just cleared everything out. We basically wiped them out, didn't even notice. Now the trees have come back. The habitats come back. Maybe the box turtles are coming back. These guys can live over 150 years. That's a long time to find that one other box turtle left in the swamp, right? That's a long time to wander around looking for love. And now, a couple hundred years of forest regrowth, maybe. So what she's hoping to do is find wild box turtles. They're going to DNA test them and try to figure out where they come from. Yes? Coy wolves. In Minnesota, they call them brush wolves. It's a coyote. Now, technically, a coy wolf is half coyote, half wolf, which could happen. Yeah, and that's actually a name some people use for our coyotes. They used to think that happened back in the 1800s and hadn't happened since, but more recent research found that in the Great Lakes, coyotes and wolves are still interbreeding. So when you do DNA tests as you come east away from the Great Lakes, our coyotes have wolf DNA. You go west away from the Great Lakes, and the wolves have coyote DNA, which is kind of neat. Because normally a wolf kills a coyote. They don't normally get along. But something I don't know, some Canadian thing, I guess. I don't know. Yes?
Is there a great deal of difference in the sizes between a coyote and a wolf?
Oh, sure. Around here, most of the coyotes we're going to see are 30, 40 pounds. A really big one, maybe 50 pounds. That's a moose of a coyote, and that would be a teeny, teeny little wolf. Wolves are 80 and up, for gray wolves anyway.
the wolf would be on the side of a German police.
Yeah. And the tricky thing too with any wild canid, any wild dog, is we're used to domestic dogs. Domestic dogs have broad chests, relatively short legs. So you stand, I don't know, like a little black lab next to a coyote that's the same height, that lab's gonna significantly outweigh that coyote. The wild dogs have narrow chests and proportionally longer legs, especially wolves. Yeah, so like a 100-pound wolf is gonna be way bigger than a 100-pound German Shepherd, or at least it's gonna look bigger, just because of the way it's built.
They have a mounted one over in Running.
Yeah, they do.
And there's such a difference between the size of that and a coyote.
Oh yeah. I mean, a normal Western coyote is less than half the size of a wolf. Our coyotes are a little bigger, and they're definitely more wolf-like.
As I understood it, so the coyotes from the west mainly noticed the wolf.
Yes.
And then they got bigger.
And then also, you look at coyotes in the Northeast, not only do they have the wolf genetics to get bigger, but there's a selective pressure. A bigger animal does better in cold weather. It's just physics of heat loss, right? You do better in the cold. And they're also, because they get that little bit of sociability from wolves, they can cooperate better than like the original Western coyote and hunt deer now. They don't do it, they're not wiping out deer, but in the winter, it's been well documented. A lot of pups will hang out with mom and dad through the winter, and they'll hunt deer in the winter. Especially in the Adirondacks and northern Maine, they're seeing it a lot. And there's an advantage to being bigger in that situation. So there's evolution as well as wolf genetics, making coyotes bigger in the north. Yeah. If you think about it, the eastern coyote is a new animal. It's a new animal.
How old is this?
We're not sure how old this guy is. He was an unwanted pet at least twice before he came to another nature center. And then they didn't want him and they sent him to us. No idea how old he is. Yeah. But again, they can live over 150 years.
That red eye.
Yes. Yeah, and the red eye tells us he's a boy. And the brighter red his eyes are, the healthier he is. And the girls are interested in that. Their eyes are kind of a brownish orange color. So, the two box turtles walk up, she looks him in the eye. It's like a fire engine. Right? She knows he's healthy, yeah. Yes?
Do you think this is just that coyotes could evolve to be large enough to hunt a white-tailed deer?
Sure. Yeah, there's a chance. Yeah. Yeah, they are. But again, you get a lot of people that say, oh, the coyotes are wiping out the deer. They can't. That's not how nature works, If coyotes could wipe out deer, wolves would have done it 50,000 years ago. It doesn't work that way. With predators, they slow their birth rate when their food resources are reduced. So let's say you've got this many deer, the coyotes start eating them, having lots of baby coyotes, so now the deer population comes down. Coyotes don't have enough food to have lots of babies. Their population starts to come down. Oh, now the deer can come up. Oh, now the coyotes can come up. You get this whole balance of nature hula thing, where the predators cannot wipe out the prey. That's just, otherwise there would be no prey animals, right? After millions and millions of years, there would be nothing left. I have a feeling that we're going really long. Sorry, guys. So let's see some of the new animals. One of the new animals. Talking about that eastern coyote. Fits right in. We have some new birds. Since the 80s, the merlins, that little falcon, have been coming south out of Canada. They're nesting down in Massachusetts now. In the 80s, they were nesting like the borders of Canada. It was the furthest southern merlins. Kind of the same time frame, the black vultures, top right, they've been coming north. A lot of birds are coming north. As winters get easier, southern birds are able to make it up here a little better. Easy winters are what it's all about for this guy too. This is the opossum. And the opossums turned up in the lower Connecticut River Valley, probably in the 60s or 70s, and have been working their way north ever since. Really a weird animal. They really are. A lot of times people look at them and say, oh, it's like a big rat. They're not related to rats at all. He's a marsupial. He's more closely related to a kangaroo than he is a rat. Yeah, when he was, someone's going, yeah, when he was a baby, you guys have seen the documentary about the kangaroos, right? They're born, there's like gross little pink gummy bear things, right? No back legs, no eye, they're just like these noses with feet. And that's what he was. And he'd crawl up into his mom's pouch, wiggled in there, that's where the milk is, right? And he stayed there for about 2 months with his 9 brothers and sisters. And this is when all the moms in the audience go, wait, what? 10 little baby opossums in mama's pouch. And when they were about the size of mice, they climbed out onto her back. And that's when she was hit by a car. Now, fortunately, once baby opossums are out of the pouch, they're pretty self-sufficient. I mean, sometimes they fall off and mom just keeps rolling and they're on their own right then. So the rehabber figured, well, I'll keep them for a few weeks, we'll feed them, we'll get them strong, and then we'll let them go. But in the process, she noticed that 3 of the joeys, just like kangaroos, baby opossums are joeys, 3 of the joeys had deformities in their back legs, and they weren't able to climb right, they weren't able to run. She felt that they wouldn't be able to survive in the wild. She reached out to us to see if we'd take them. We said no. Vermont doesn't allow that. You know it. We can't. And she's like, come on, let's ask. You guys ever do that? I know you kids have done it. The rest of you did it when you were kids. You know the answer is going to be no, but you ask anyway? That's what we did. And instead of no, the answer was, let's talk about it. And we talked about it for a couple months and put together a pilot program. So this opossum and his sister live with us at the museum. And we're going to give it about 3 years and see how it goes. And then potentially revisit the regulations on that. And who knows, maybe in a couple years I'll bring a porcupine or a fox or something. Yes? The Vermont has never allowed native mammals, is why, really. Prehensile tail is cool too, isn't it?
You just disconnected your microphone.
Oh, we did? Good man.
Let me see your pocket.
The possum disconnected the microphone.
I was muted.
We'll pause for station identification.
Yeah,
All right, cool. No, probably not. He doesn't have much for problem solving. But they are neat little, I totally forgot what we were talking about. But he's just such a cool little animal. And there's something that exists in Vermont now because of us. When settlers got here from Europe, possums came about as far north as the mid-Atlantic states. The thing that seems to have been stopping them was winter. I mean, look at this tail. Look at those little rose petal ears, right? That big bare nose, those little bare toes. He's very susceptible to frostbite. Cold weather kills opossums. Winter's probably their #1 killer in Vermont. But when we build sheds and barns and we put cat food on the back porch and, back then, open garbage dumps, today compost piles, that provides him food and shelter that's better than what he's going to get up in the woods. Now, opossums are in Canadian cities. They're not in Canadian forests, but they're in Canadian cities. And you are much more likely to see this guy in your backyard than you are up on top of Putney Mountain. Just because we provide him resources that lets him get through the winter. I actually one night saw one coming out of the graveyard across the street. They are here. Unlike, their tracks are neat, aren't they? They have thumbs on all 4 feet, so they leave pretty distinctive tracks. Now, unlike the hawks, where if you have hawks in your backyard year after year after year, there's a good chance they're the same birds. Opossums only live 1 to 2 years in the wild. In captivity, 2 to 3, some outliers might hit 4 or 5. They're very short-lived animals. They survive by producing up to 13 young at a time. In the north, if it times out just right, they can get 2 litters. In the south, they might get 3. So they kind of have that insect survival model. Produce lots of young. Get them out there fast. This little guy here, he's going to be 2 years old in a couple months, so he's an old man now. Really a neat little guy, though. We can't pet him, though. Nope, that was part of the deal. No petting the marsupials. So this is the last animal I brought today. And I've noticed from the number of people looking at their watches that I've gone over my time. We do want to have time for more questions and conversation, though. I recognize some of you might need to get home for dinner or bedtimes or something like that. But I would just...
Yeah, we can have some discussion. If
Yeah.
you do go, we have the jar out by the front for our next presentation. If you want to make a contribution. Other than that, hang out as long as you
One other thing, too, just to quickly wrap up here. Keeping track of the wildlife in your backyard is, it's fun, right? You guys with the trail cameras, it's neat. Also, though, we can contribute to knowledge. There's this citizen science is something that a lot of different organizations are doing now, where your observations can contribute to real science. I just printed out some slips with a Beak. You guys know Bonnievale down in Brattleboro? They have a great resource page for some citizen science projects. Some of you maybe are on their Salamander Crossing Brigade already. There's also an organization in Vermont Eco Studies. And their whole model is citizen science. Everything from peregrine falcons to vernal pools to loons. All kinds of stuff. Bumblebees. And they're doing some serious science with the help of people like us. And then one of the things they help do is there's iNaturalist, where it's an app on your phone. You take a picture of something, you submit, I saw a chickadee at this address. It goes into the database, and we know there are chickadees at that address. And there have been for 50 years, or well, probably not 50 years of internet data, but you get the idea, right? We're able to really map what's here. And as new things show up, and new animals are showing up in Vermont. We had that little Fowler's toad there is new to Vermont. Ticks are new to Vermont. Think about it, right? Those of you who grew up in Vermont, right? I grew up outside of White River Junction. I didn't know what a tick was. I knew from commercials on TV, flea and tick collar. Okay, it must be like a flea. I went to college on Long Island to learn what a tick was. I came back to Vermont and they were here. And now they're in Canada. They have moved into the state. Lone Star ticks are coming into the state now for that meat allergy disease. You guys don't know about that one? We don't have time to go into that one. But anyway, thank you all for coming out tonight. Hopefully some of these animals are something you see in your backyard. And if not, go outside. Look for them, please.
And I'm also going to announce that Vermont Institute of Natural Science is only an hour away from here. And they have a new, well, not that one, but the canopy walk.
Yeah.
We just went on it, and it's just so much fun to go through the trees. Anyhow. So I'm sorry.
And we're only half an hour away. If you
That's
don't
right.
want
That's right. Let's go.
No. No, you guys should. I was up at Vin's last weekend. You guys should go up to Vin's. No, clap away. Yeah. Thanks. Is there a question, front row girl?
Actually went to the pool before.
What?
A vernal pool.
Oh, you've been to a vernal pool? Aren't they neat? Yeah. Cool. All right. Any of the rest of you guys have questions? Any cool wildlife sightings out there? A bunch of you said, yeah, we've got trail cameras. Yeah, what do you got?
We saw a purple object 2 weeks ago at our house.
Nice.
First time of our lives.
Yeah.
Very natural experience.
Hey, thank you for coming, ladies.
We gave it a minute's view and then decided to scare it off so it wouldn't come around to get the cat.
Sure, yeah, because they will eat your cat, yes. Yeah, wow, that's neat, though. They're so secretive. It's something to see them. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
When we were going on a walk and there was this much snow, we found fox tracks in one area of the woods, and then we found possum tracks in another area, and then I think 2 weeks later, underneath our neighbor's shed, there was an opossum that was dead with a giant bite in his side. And I was wondering if the fox may have been connected to that.
Well, I think that's circumstantial evidence. But yeah, maybe. I mean, but a fox and a big opossum or a little opossum? They vary so much in size. Yeah. Yeah. So an opossum's mouth, you all thought he was cute. His mouth looks like this. Every tooth in an opossum's head is sharp. So they can bite back. Something like a coyote or a domestic dog or a bobcat would probably be a better matchup against an opossum than a fox, but doesn't mean you couldn't, right? It could be, yeah.
At my house, my mom, she heard something outside and she thought it was our cat, but it wasn't. It was a possum, and
Uh-huh.
it was out in the front yard, and Mom heard it, but then she thought it was our cat.
Mm-hmm. But it was an opossum, huh? I'm so glad I brought the opossum today. It sounds like they're just swarming you guys. That's awesome. Come on, trail camera people. I want to hear, what's the coolest thing you got on your trail cam this year?
Tuesday night, we had a black bear on the deck. We got a great video of that.
Black bear on the deck. Nice, nice. Taking your bird feeder down, I'm guessing. Yeah. And the cast iron pole. Yeah.
You did a good job.
A giant fat raccoon who is so smart to take the bird feeder and nestle it in the crotch of the tree and then
Wow.
stuff itself all night.
So the raccoon took your bird feeder to go. Nice.
Except he didn't actually take it, like walk off into the woods. He just.
It was amazing to watch actually on the trail cam because it was a 15-second video. But yeah, he pulled the rope up and set it right in the tree and took the lid off. And
Nice.
very delicately.
Great.
And it was huge.
Yeah. That's cool too. I mean, coming out of winter, to be a big fat raccoon coming out of winter, that's good. That's good for him. Yes. I'm sorry. I can't hear anything she's saying. I'm going to come closer so I can hear what you're saying. Okay, what did you see on your trail cam?
Skunk.
A skunk. A skunk under your shed? What a great place for a skunk to live from the skunk's point of view.
Well, kind of under the chicken coop, right?
Oh, under the chicken coop? That's nice too, yeah. You know, a lot of times we'll see animals hanging around chicken coops, skunks, possums, owls, rats. Well, see, the rats are the key there because a lot of times those animals are coming in for the rodents that are at the chicken coop. You know, and right away we're like, oh, the owl's after my chickens. A full-size chicken is more than most owls want to go near. But a rat or a mouse that's coming in for the chicken feed, that's perfect. And the skunks and the possums, and they're the same way, yeah. I mean, everything that can does eat chickens because they're delicious, but sometimes something's there not to eat the chickens. Yes?
Once I wasn't here for this, but my dad, we saw a red-tailed hawk coming down at one of our chickens, and the rooster fought it off.
The rooster fought off the hawk. Nice.
You've got a pretty fierce rooster.
All right, that's his job, right? Yeah, that's what he's there for. Nice. Yes.
Is that a red fox or a silver fox?
So that is neither. It's a gray fox.
Oh.
So the way to recognize a gray fox from a red fox, look at the tip of the tail. If the tip of the tail is black, it's a gray fox. If it's white, it's a red fox or one of the variants. Like even a silver fox would have a white tail tip.
My father used to try them. He got one bigger than that.
Yeah?
I have it set up.
Oh, wow. Is it one of these guys or is it a different kind of fox?
It's bigger than this.
Yeah.
And it does have, I always figured it was a gray fox.
Yeah.
But it's bigger than that.
Huh. Well, it could just be a bigger fox. Yeah. Yeah. And gray fox are neat. If we're thinking about how wildlife changes, the history of gray foxes are kind of a neat one because they were our number one fox. When the settlers got here from Europe, we cut all the trees down. Now the red fox was our #1 fox. Gray fox liked the woods. So red fox came in, and they pretty much were our boss fox. When coyotes came into Vermont in around the 40s, we started seeing a lot more red foxes because wild dogs don't get along. Coyotes will kill foxes if they can. And they were pushing all the red foxes into town. Right? The coyotes are on top of the mountain. The red fox doesn't want to be there anymore. But gray foxes can climb trees. So the coyote moves in, pushes out the red foxes. The gray foxes can climb the trees, get away from the coyotes. Gray foxes are doing really good right now. Red foxes are fine, don't worry. But they've been moved out of the places where they used to dominate red fox. Now, I had a trail camera behind my house, and we had red and gray foxes going by that trail camera, separated by about 4 hours. Like consistently, they had a routine where they weren't passing the camera at the same time. But we were in an edge area. So we had big fields, we had big forests, we had all of it. But neat animal. If you guys see gray foxes, they're cute, they're neat.
And their tracks are so neat too. They're very, very good.
Yeah. I always figure if at first I thought it was a cat track, then I realized it's a dog, it's a gray fox.
Yeah. So I thought that red foxes were not native here. They were brought in by the settlers.
We had a red fox, it's native, but then the Europeans brought a bunch of European red foxes in for fox hunts. You know, they'd bring them in and let them go and then chase them around. We did have a native red fox, or I guess we do have a native red fox, yeah. Yes?
At my grandma's house, before that, when I was outside and I played, and we had the dogs out, that there was a dog, but we didn't know which dog it was. And it ran over here, but then another dog at my grandma's house was probably halfway from it, but we had to run inside before it got us.
So a strange dog came over and was going to mess with your dog? Yeah. Good to keep track of where our dogs are, right? Yeah. All right. Well, folks, anybody else? We're wrapping it up? All right. Well, thank you all for staying late and coming out tonight. Thank you to the Conservation Commission for having us here today. And come and visit us up at the museum sometime.